Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Land slippages from heavy rainfall affecting several Portland communities. Desist from feeding the homeless on the streets, but why? We have the details. And later in sports, Arnett and Waterhouse advance to semi-finals of Jamaica Premier League. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. A disaster response team has been mobilized in Portland as several communities are still reeling from the heavy rain over the past 72 hours. Among the communities affected by land slippages are Bloomfield, Claverty Cottage, and New Eden. In an interview with TVJ News, Councillor for the Hope Bay Division, Orton Manahan, said while some communities have recovered, several roadways are still impassable. He said farm roads are among the most impacted, especially in Claverty Cottage.
Those clearances may take up to 2 to 3 days because you have to work your way from the bottom of Claverty right up to ensure that all the land slippages are cleared. And as I say, there are multiple land slippages on that road. Reports also came in from the Bloomfield community in Swift River of a landslide that came down on the back of a dwelling house where the back door of the house was broken down and mud and water flowed through the house while the occupants were still inside.
While no one was injured during the heavy rain, we were told multiple agencies have been working to assist residents.
We still had some issues as well with on the New Eden to Mount Herman Road. The heavy rains caused a slight interference to vehicular traffic as stones and other debris blocked sections of those roads, of that road. However, the residents sort of were mobilized and they managed to clear sections of the road and thus allowing the free flow of traffic, but we still need to put a tractor on it.
President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Leighton Johnson, says some students who are deemed disruptive in the classroom react that way due to traumatic past experiences. Mr. Johnson, who was speaking on Power 106's Morning Agenda on Tuesday, says they need special attention. According to the JTA president, teachers should be able to assess them properly and refrain from labeling them as violent.
When a student has been hurt or traumatized for some reason or the other, these are students who perhaps come from communities that are violent prone, homes that are violent torn. They live this, they see this. They come to school and they act out in this way. However, there is a willingness to reform. There is a willingness to participate in the interventions.
Mr. Johnson says he is also pleased with the endorsement for a national movement by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ. Now, he admits that school-based programs cannot work by itself, but it will take all hands on deck to address violence in schools.
So it has to be the approach where the entire nation gets on board where this is concerned. The entire nation has to be singing the same tune, beating the same drums, indicating that violence is not the solution to any of our problems. Ensure that conflict resolution centers are not just for schools, but are in communities right across the board.
An appeal this afternoon for members of the public to stop feeding homeless people on the streets. The call comes from the management of the Portland Rehabilitation Center. Details in this report.
There are at least 2,000 people who have made a home on Jamaica's streets. Oftentimes, they are fed by Good Samaritans in the form of churches, community groups, and passers-by. But this act of kindness also comes at a cost to the environment.
Stop feeding the homeless in the middle of the town. We want to feed them here for 2 reasons. One, to leave the town cleaner because after lunch they have box lunch all over. 2, if we have the possibility to receive them here and feed them, we will work out our best capacity to keep them. So that will be beneficial to the town.
The center is also raising concern about the stigma associated with local homeless shelters and its residents. Christy Gay Plummer is center manager at the facility.
Persons here about the Portland Rehab Center. The stigma is it's the madhouse. which I don't believe we are a madhouse. Even for them sometimes to go out and get jobs, it is difficult if we put that their address is the Portland Rehab Center. So most time seeking jobs for them, we have to say they are at Folly Road.
She says a public education campaign is needed.
Our challenge, we need more persons out there to really know about, persons out there to be educated, because if they really get the understanding of what the rehab center is about or mental illness is about, then they will look at us as something different other than the madhouse.
Kerry-Ann Simpson, TVJ News.
Where are the justices of the peace? That question this afternoon from Custers of St. Catherine, Iselin Golding, as she stressed the importance of JPs in helping to resolve the growing number of conflicts in schools and domestic violence in communities before they turn fatal. She was addressing the recent annual general meeting of the St. Catherine Justice of the Peace Association. Krista Campbell has more in this report.
Justice is needed. It's not an advertisement for Justices of the Peace in St. Catherine, where there are already more JPs trained as lay magistrates than the Custos is able to roster to serve in Petty Sessions Court in the parish.
Not everyone who is trained can be rostered for duties in the courts, as only sometimes 3 justices can sit in a session.
Custos Iselin Golding says there are about 1,670 JPs in St. Catherine, 91 more to be commissioned soon, and almost 600 candidates to be interviewed for training. But she stressed the need for JPs in helping to de-escalate domestic violence situations and school conflicts.
Some of you figure if you're not a lay magistrate, you can't serve. And I'm saying to you, the community needs you. Listen to the news. The schools need you, ladies and gentlemen. As a matter of fact, one zone did a peace management intervention in a school for 2 days. The principal was impressed because we have the 7th graders. What is happening with our 7th graders? We don't know, but it is working.
And so she's cautioning JPs who do not take their duties seriously enough, those she calls profilers.
Once you are commissioned, we can't find you. The numbers have changed, the emails have changed, we can't find you. There are 4 justices of the peace on one avenue, and persons have to leave from where they are to come to the justice's office to have documents signed.
And not for the first time, a warning to JPs against charging for their services.
One justice of the peace is now serving time. He was caught, he was convicted within 5 days, and he's now serving time. He'll have to pay a fine, and he'll also have to serve the time. I'm warning you, ladies and gentlemen, you took the oath to serve as a volunteer.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
A week after former MP for Westmoreland Central Dwayne Vas insisted that he has no outstanding document for the Integrity Commission, he pleaded guilty to failing to file his statutory declarations for 2019. Mr. Vas made the plea when he appeared in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court this morning. The Integrity Commission, in a report tabled in Parliament last Tuesday, recommended that he is to be charged for breaching the Act. Mr. Vas pleaded guilty to failure without a reasonable cause to provide information requested by the Director of Information and Complaints by way of notice on November 3 and 16, 2020. The court was told that another letter was sent on November 17 with a new deadline dated November 20, 2020. Now, the required information was in regards to Estella Global Services. The prosecutor told the court that Mr. Vas submitted the information on March 5, 2021, which was outside the deadline. Mr. Vas's attorney, who sought to ventilate the issue, pointed out that the prosecutor failed to outline a letter dated May 18, 2021. Responding to the attorney, presiding Judge Carlo Mason told the attorney that he had a full court today and was strapped for time. But before adjourning the case until June 6, Judge Mason instructed both parties to have mature discussion. He is to be sentenced on that day as well. And the Chief Executive Officer of the Registrar General's Department, Charlton McFarlane, also pleaded guilty when he appeared this morning in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court. Mr. McFarlane pleaded guilty to 5 counts of failing to submit his statutory declarations for 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2022. He also pleaded guilty to failure to comply with a notice issued under Section 41(6) of the Integrity Commission Act. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Some 250 trees were recently planted in Bogue St. Anne. Over 40 volunteers braved the hilly terrain to plant the trees on Earth Day. Now it's hoped it will provide protection for the watershed area and the environment.
We are planting 250 trees here today, 100 blue maho, 100 cedar, and 50 bitter damsel. The trees will mature in, say, 20 years, but we go beyond that because we are not only concerned about the maturity of the trees, but we are also interested in protecting the environment for conservation purposes. The trees are very important to the ecosystem. And we want to ensure that we preserve the natural environment here because it's a forest reserve and it is going to support the Duns River watershed and it is also going to support NWC rainwater harvesting.
The Jamaica Fire Brigade says it was delighted to partner with the initiative in light of the increasing reports of bushfires.
Last year we suffered a lot as it relates to drought and bushfires. And as firefighters, if we can plant back some of those trees that we have lost last year, it is a good look for the Jamaica Fire Brigade and for the whole climate change issues that we are getting into.
And it's now time for the Business Minute. The Bank of Jamaica says in 2023, 212 applications were processed for money service businesses. The central bank says 166 new applications were received from 7 remittance entities and 6 cambios. 46 applications were carried over from the previous year. The BOJ says the processing of 27 applications was discontinued due to the failure of the applicants to satisfy the bank's eligibility requirements. 30 applications were withdrawn by the applicants. Of the remaining 155 applications which met the criteria for processing, 140 were approved, while 15 were being processed as at end December 2023. Further afield, Samsung Electronics reported strong first quarter earnings of more than $52 billion in sales. The company's operating profit in the first quarter spiked 933%, beating analysts' expectations. It's a big turnaround for Samsung after half a dozen consecutive quarters of profit decline. The company reported the surge in earnings is due to demand for high bandwidth memory chips. And that's it for the Business Minute. And the time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the U.S. government has condemned a Cuban court's decision to hand down lengthy sentences to a group of protesters as repression. 30 protesters were found guilty of crimes including sedition and sabotage earlier this year after they took to the street in August 2022 to vent their anger at lengthy power cuts. They were sentenced last week to jail terms of up to 15 years. Unauthorized public gatherings are illegal in Cuba and protests are rare. On the international scene, dozens of pro-Palestine demonstrators at Columbia University have escalated their protest over the war in Gaza by occupying an academic building. Activists at the New York University seized Hamilton Hall early on Tuesday, barricading themselves inside. One student said the campus was lawless as officials grapple with the long-running demo, which prompted a wave of rallies elsewhere. Columbia has urged students and staff to stay away from the campus on Tuesday. And a 36-year-old man is in custody after killing a 13-year-old boy in a sword attack in Hainault, East London this morning. 4 others were stabbed, including 2 police officers. They were taken to hospital but are not thought to have life-threatening injuries. Police say the incident is not being treated as terror-related. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Ann Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.